It's all mine, but like we discussed, right? I'm going to speak to the guru of matchmaking.
Well, I wouldn't know if I would call myself a guru, but yes, I have some experience with the matchmaking and dating, and yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, like I have a couple of friends that they're like deep, as you mentioned, in the trenches, to use your words. And like I know women in it, I don't know men with it, and they have their complaints, like a lot of people do, right? But one thing I've noticed that they don't realize that they have the same complaints because they're not talking to each other.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I found that it is hard for everyone, men, women, and it doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter where you live. Modern dating is it's a different beast.
Yeah, yeah. Like some people would actually call it a beast when they're dating,
Yes, or yeah,
right?
or
So
dumpster
let me
fire, or all
dumpster
kinds of
fire. Yeah, or there's pee in the dating pool. Like I hear all
things.
these analogies, right? So let me ask you, what do you think are some of the obstacles that men face and women face when dating?
Well, it depends on what you're talking about because we've got the apps and then we've got the struggle of meeting in real life. And there's so many obstacles really. The first obstacle really is how people are looking at it and their mindset. If you are going to have a mindset of, and I'm not saying, oh, you have to have a perfect mindset and then everything will work out. I'm not about that, but you do have to have your mindset on track because our brain, that reticular activating system, it looks for proof. So if you are a woman thinking, oh, everybody sucks, all men are players, nobody wants commitment, this is what you're going to attract and find. And the same thing for men. I mean, your brain is kind of hardwired to look for what to prove yourself right, in other words. And I know it's hard to be positive, but that's that's one of the most important things is to have an attitude of, okay, he's out there, she's out there, and it just there's only one person that's going to be your love of a lifetime, and that hopefully that person you're going to marry, but you're going to date a lot of people. And it's you got to kind of go through a lot, and you can't expect everybody to be a hit.
Is that maybe difficult for men and women to understand? Is that it may not be the very first person they meet. It could be person number five, person number eight. Is that a difficulty for them to understand?
Yes, I mean, I think it depends on where you are, and also where you are in life and how long you've been dating, how long you've been, maybe lonely, and the longer the more kind of disheartened you get. If you are sort of not, or if you've just been off of relationship and you haven't been single for that long, then maybe you've got sort of a fresh, like, oh, I'll go out and have some fun. And so it kind of depends. Or I'm not quite ready. I want to do some inner work before I get out there and really get into that next relationship, which people should do, no matter what kind of relationship. If you have, ended a relationship, especially a long-term one, you really should process. And even if you're the one that broke up with the person, certainly if you got your heart broken and you're the one that got broken up with, there's things to process. And but every relationship will really learn, teach you lessons. There's every relationship is there's tons of lessons, and to reflect and see, okay, what did I do right? What could I have done differently? And what did I like about that? And what didn't I? What am I now know that I'm not looking for in my next partner? It can kind of really inform things that work and don't work for you. But anyway, but to kind of get back to your question, it is people, and some people can. I mean, I've heard plenty of stories. They get on the apps and like the first or second person is their person, and it absolutely can happen. But it usually takes some time. I mean, I was kind of separated for a while and dating mostly like in real life, not, just sort of processing. Then like the divorce was final, and I I wasn't on the apps that much for that long. And then I did find somebody that I wanted to date, and kind of like one step thing led to another. And we were in about almost 2-year relationship. And I ended that over the summer. Just wasn't quite the person, that I was looking for, didn't have quite the values that I want. But it was a great like post-divorce relationship. So I kind of, didn't date for that long as far as that goes for that little time. But now I broke up and I'm back on the apps. And so I'm like I said, I'm in the trenches with people, which, it's interesting, but at least I know like I know what you're going through. I know what people are going through, and I can really. And I also dated plenty, before I was married. So like I dated before the apps and then after the apps, and not a lot has changed. I mean, a lot has, but there's really so much is still the same. There's just fundamental things that are tried and true when it comes to dating.
I remember when I was going on a number of days. I still think I'm going to age myself here, Kelly, a little bit. I still think they call it serial dating, right? Like when you're dating a few people
Ah,
at
yes.
a time, right? I know we're so old. We are so old. And when I was going through that, one thing that was a struggle for me was time and money, of course, right? Because you want to go to a different place if you
Yeah.
can, right? I remember there was a joke where to and ladies don't hate me for this. So to reduce the creativity and make it more convenient, I would go to the same restaurant in the same part of town.
Yeah,
Right?
people do that. You're
People
gonna
do
get
that.
your first date spot. Yeah.
First day spot, right? Until one of the servers said, "Oh, do you want your regular table in front of the date?" She
Oof.
kind of she kind of looked at me. I was like, "Oh yeah, I bring my team here at my job. This is where we hang out on lunch." Thank God I
He
was quick
ratted
on
you
my
out.
feet.
He blew your cover.
I know, right? I want to strangle her, but she got no tip. She got no tip. But
No. Harsh.
so the reason why I say that is because when it comes to the dating, at least what I had to learn was it is a new experience each time, or it can be a new experience each time.
Right.
And what I struggled with was the time and the time and the money. But then when that didn't become a struggle, it was the creativity of the date, right?
Yeah.
You work with people meeting, you have your clients, or sorry, you have experiences with the dating apps and you help people with the dating apps. When it comes from the dating app to getting that first date, what seems to block people from
Oh,
transitioning from the app to real life?
this is what that drives me the most nuts is this little area right here. It should be so much simpler than it is. And you talk to anyone, again, I don't care how old you are, where you live, everyone says it's just you get on the app, okay, you like each other. Okay, you match. And then you're in each other's messages and you message a little. It just there should be not that much messaging there because you can't learn anything. You got to get off the app, get on the phone. I suggest a phone conversation because you want to see if the person's real. Also talk to them to make sure that you can have a decent conversation enough to even want to go out on a first date to see if they don't say anything weird. I mean, some guys there have been some times like I'll get on a phone call and oh, he seems nice. He owns his own company. He's this, that, and then they'll just say something weird, and you're like, okay, thank God I'm not going on a first date or any date with this person. Um, so you want to get on the phone and then get to a date because you've got to get in front of people and with people to see their energy and if there really is an attraction to see to make sure that there's anything there, and then if there is something there, then a second date. But that needs to be much smoother, and I think that has gotten a lot worse on the apps. People are not moving things along. That's why I recommend, and I do this myself for female clients. I love when a guy is just like, hey, nice to match, how about we talk, I'll call you. Thank you, that is good. Now I know some guys are hesitant to do that because some women, and this drives me nuts, don't like it. Well, I don't want to talk. I just want to message for a while. Why? Who needs a pen pal? First of all. Second of all, you don't know if you're even messaging with somebody real or somebody single because I mean, not a lot, but there are a significant amount of people on the apps that are just not single. They're on there to just get some attention, and it's gross, but it's true. Whether they have a boyfriend or girlfriend or actual spouse. And some people are upfront and they're looking for somebody to join their throuple. At least they're upfront about it, but and if that's your thing, that's fine. But if not, swipe left. But that it needs to be more streamlined and just the app is just a tool, and then let's get to real life. But not enough people are actually doing that. They're just waiting, and then you message and then it goes nowhere. And then it becomes too time consuming.
Yeah, that's one thing I hear a lot about, like with the rise of dating apps and becoming more commonplace, right? Because I remember reading like a couple of interviews and surveys and research where they're saying that's becoming more and more popular. I think like the majority of people have at least a profile on a dating app these days, right? So with the transition
Yeah.
from the app to in person, there's still gaps there, right? Let's say if you were to take me and I was trying to transition from the dating app to real life person to the first date. What are some tips that you would share with me, or maybe what are some do betters that I can do?
From getting into the from the app, matching on the app to getting to the first date, streamline it, just match on the app. Hey, nice. Like maybe a little bit of back and forth just to, and then how would you like to talk? And then hopefully she'll give the number, and then you it's kind of nice to sometimes I like when a guy will text and just say, "Hey, is now a good time to talk?" Or even on the app you can say, "Hey, I'm available Tuesday evening," something like that, set up some sort of call, and then get on the phone and try not to make the call too long because you want to get to know, you want to get in person, get to know, but long enough that you can get kind of a vibe if you want to go out. And if you're the guy, ask the woman out. It like so it drives me nuts when it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll love to talk to you again. I don't want, I have enough friends that I don't have time to talk with on the phone enough. I don't want, no, I want to get on a date. And then if you're anywhere like, like better than your pictures, because some of these men, it's like, I hope you're better than your pictures, then maybe we'll get in a second date, but I don't, yeah. And some guys are, okay, fine. They'll maybe the second time we talk, they'll ask me out or whatever, but just get to it. Nobody needs a pen pal, nobody needs a phone pal. Just, get in real life. So and then you get to the date. And we suggest a 3-day rule where I match make. And I also suggest that drinks for a first date. You know, Dinner is kind of a commitment, it's too long. Coffee is maybe too short and feels sort of businesslike. It's not sexy. Now, a lot of people don't drink, but you don't have to have necessarily an alcoholic cocktail you know, um, if you're a non-drinker, but at least that sort of happy hour, that early evening vibe, it's just a little, it just is more conducive to romance, you know. Um, but I'm not against coffee dates if it's not the end of the world, but I think that it's just like I said, it's just not quite as sexy. But dinner, and also dinner, you don't want to be stuck at somewhere for hours with somebody who you don't want to be with. Like, you're just like, oh my gosh, it can be too long. And also it gets expensive for guys, because I think a man should pay for the first date, and if you're paying for lots of dinners, and then also if you're not very into her or vice versa or both, I don't think a man should have to pay for a whole dinner for somebody that, they're never going to see each other again.
I think that's like part of the great debate. Who pays? Because for some people, it's a deal breaker, right? Like, I remember there was a woman, she went, I think it was TikTok. She went on this rant. And when I mean rant, Kelly, it was like epic F bombs. Every guy she had went on a date on before, she didn't name them, but she described them. And I'm guessing they're from her city. So someone's going to find who they are, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. And she was like, anyone suggests that I go 50-50, no date. Like that was like a hard rule. And I was looking back on it and I couldn't remember a time where I expected the woman that I went on a date with to pay.
Well, good for you. And I think that is the way it should be. It's just protocol. It's the general consensus. A man should pay for the first date. It's just the way it is. I mean, a lot of women, most it should pay for the first few. Some women, yeah, will never pay for anything. But I think it's nice for a woman to offer to do some things. And most men, in my experience, won't let us pay for stuff. So most, not all.
Most, yes, yes, because there's some men
Oh yeah.
who the structure of the date is coffee when the sun is at its highest point, so probably 12 noon, right? And then to your point, it's very business-like, right? So what do you do
Yeah.
for work? What do you like? What do you do this? How's your hair? And this and that. Do you also help people structure the dates as well?
You mean like the conversation? I mean, I have some
The
ideas of conversation starters. I mean, most of my clients don't really need that. That that I do kind of, well, I guess I do give little pointers, like little reminders, so to each client. And one thing I do remind is ask questions about them and their life, and to always indicate interest if you're interested. If you're the woman, give those cues. If you're a man, you know, ask her out again. So there's no, because some people they think, oh, they're not interested when the other person really is. So it's like you want to indicate interest. People want to know if you're interested, and asking questions because you don't want somebody who is just completely talking about themselves and not asking anything about you because that's not fun. And but you want it to flow, and then also asking deeper questions, like if somebody says something about their life, then asking about that. So it's not like an interview, but it's just easy conversation. And yeah, so but you don't want to like dominate the conversation or like, because then you do the thing that he's always say, like to be interesting, you want to be interested. And when people like talking about themselves. So if you're the only one and not asking, and you don't seem interested in the other person if you're not asking questions about them and only talking about yourself.
That's the part that, at least from like a man's perspective, I think men miss, right? Because we'll ask, or if we get asked questions, we're very, sometimes it can be very straightforward, right? Like,
Yeah.
how's work? Oh, work's going well. Can you give me more?
Yeah.
Right? I remember some of my friends, they would tell me, they're like, oh, she's asking me so many questions. I'm like, well, she's trying to get you to talk because you guys are face to face. For lack of a better word, you guys really don't know each other. So you're not that far from being strangers,
Yeah, oh, totally. And that's
right?
that's why we always recommend a second date. If there's, if it's not a hard no, go on a second because you are strangers. At least on the second date, it's automatically more relaxed because now that person is not a stranger and you've had the first. And some people are just more nervous and awkward on dates, on first dates than
Would
others.
that fall under then like the 3 date rule where you give the person 3 dates and then you determine if it's a yay or if it's a nay?
That is a good rule, actually, to go 3 times and to go out 3 times because then you know if you really want. If you want to kiss them, if you want to continue getting to know them, and then yes, that on that third date they're even more familiar, and you will by then learn some things that you maybe like about them or not, and that'll inform you. But yeah.
So let me ask you then, when it comes to the dating apps, right? And the place that it has in dating, as you mentioned, right? It could be any age, could be any background, could be for anyone of any demographic. What do you think are some of the myths about the dating apps that you want people to say, please stop believing this, and why?
Ah. Okay, one is, oh, there's so many options. Okay, yes, there are. Yes, I mean we get on, there's a zillion people, but there really aren't because how many people are you really going to want to swipe right on? Then how many people are going to have mutual interest? And then of those people, who are really going to be aligned and compatible? Because it's not just about who do you think is pretty, who do you think is cute? It goes deeper than that. Because if that's all you're going on and you don't have other compatibilities in alignment,